Not So Hindu listeners, what we've got for you today is a special episode with HAF's own Easan Katir, where we're talking about all things at the intersection of cryptocurrency, AI, and dharmic investing. Hope you enjoy it. Easan, thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about cryptocurrency today. I have to admit, I am skeptical of cryptocurrency as a thing. So let's start it out. What is cryptocurrency? And frankly, is it a big scam? Because reading the news and even conceptually, it really feels to me like a giant grift sometimes. And don't get me started on calling it mining to create it. Has nothing to do with mining. Just like being on the internet has nothing to do with actually surfing. Let's go back to it. So what is cryptocurrency for those of us that, that haven't been following the news for the past decade?
Oh, well, thanks, Matt. Good to chat with you again. And you're right. Here in the internet era, we had to make up metaphors like surfing and mining and farming to try to explain what goes on, which is just basically computer code. Anyway, what is Bitcoin? Yes. If we think of gold, that's a traditional store of value for thousands of years, historically up through about the 19th century. And in this new millennium, this fellow named Satoshi invented digital gold on the internet, and he called it Bitcoin. And some of the characteristics of it, there's a fixed number of Bitcoins, 21 million Bitcoins. And the way it works is, imagine if I were to take 21 million gold coins and dematerialize them into cyberspace, then make it mathematically impossible to ever make any more than 21 million. And then I give you a protocol where any computer can send the coin to any other computer without a middleman. And I make it possible for you to take personal custody of the coins. So if you say want $1 billion worth of coins all to yourself, you can carry it around in your head by memorizing the passphrase, or hold it in what's called a hardware wallet. That's another made-up phrase for a little thing about the size of your phone. Or you can hold it on your mobile phone. You can put it in any computer, and you can move it to any custodian in the world in a few minutes for just a pittance. So the idea is, if I took gold and I said, you can't mine any more gold, that would make gold more valuable, right? If there were a fixed supply. This is why the value of Bitcoin's gone up from, $100 to $100,000. If you capped gold at 21 million gold coins and numbered each one, that would make it more valuable because you could keep track of it and easily move it. If you made it infinitesimally divisible, and if you could authenticate it in a split second with a mobile phone, that would make it more valuable because it would be fungible. And if you made it programmable with the protocol and made it possible for a computer to make 1 million transactions a second and talk to 100 million other computers, that would make it more valuable. So in essence, that's why it's gone up. That this Satoshi fellow created programmable gold on the internet. And then the last twist is he made it decentralized. So there are 50,000 different computers running the same software at the same time with an identical copy of the ledger, the bookkeeping. So no company, no CEO, no government, no regulator can meddle with it. And no one can cheat because everyone has the identical accounting. And that
it seems right now, at least, that the no one part of it that we haven't gotten to yet is actually spending it. How do I actually do anything with this without it being internal to the little game of, and I don't mean game pejoratively necessarily, but the internal workings of cryptocurrency, of Bitcoin?
Yes, well, that brings up a very good point. We have this word money, which is kind of like the word love. There's a lot of meanings to it. You can use it in very different ways. But money, basically, I think, is bipartite. It's two parts. There's wealth and there's currency. And currency is what we spend, US dollars, credit cards. And then wealth is how we store it. And so Bitcoin has become a place to store wealth more than it's become a currency. So you're right. You can't go down to the drugstore and buy something with Bitcoin these days.
Although I probably could go on the dark web and buy meth or some other illicit product. So then what is the attraction of Bitcoin? Is it, what is it? How would you sum it up? You are an investment advisor. Why should somebody get involved?
Oh, well, good question. It was kind of in the Wild West days, the first 15 years, and there were all kinds of growing pains. But now the governments around the world have formed Bitcoin reserves, and a number of public companies have changed their treasury policies to hold Bitcoin. And it has become more mainstream by even the skeptics who thought it was a scam 10 years ago. And it seemed like that 10 years ago. It was brand new and no one could figure it out. So it's not backed by the government like the US dollar is. It's backed by just math, which is kind of immutable, right? It's either a 1 or a 0. Bitcoin, it makes it possible for any individual to participate in the custody and the verification of their own savings. You don't need permission from a bank to hold Bitcoin. You don't need approval from a government to send it. You don't need to trust in an institution to verify it. You don't have to cash your check anywhere. So these aren't just technical features. People are realizing it's kind of a revolutionary change in mindset for what wealth is. And
do you think it's a good revolutionary change in mindset? Because I admit I'm playing up the skeptic in a little bit, but that is my underpinning to this, because I've always felt no one has yet, and I'd like you to do so, convinced me that this is a step forward. At best, to me, it's a step to the side and a different way of doing things. But I have yet to be convinced that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in specific, there are other cryptocurrencies, is a step forward in global finance or personal finance. Can you convince me of that?
Oh, well, you are a man of informed opinion, so I don't know if I can convince you, but I can tell you what I know.
I am. I have a strong opinion about it. However, I would like to think that I am open to persuasion of facts and data and reasoned argument. And I have, in the past decade, on a number of sometimes contentious social topics, I've actually changed my mind because I have seen new evidence or I have read evidence again. And I've said my past view was not what I currently hold. So with that in mind, I am not immutable. Let's go. And you can address it to me as the prototypical skeptic of this.
Oh, okay. Well, Jeff Bezos is quoted as saying the sign of high intelligence, he feels, is the ability to change your mind when you have new facts presented. So that's a compliment for you from Jeff. But the Bitcoin is a step forward, I think, because it has this scarcity, this fixed amount. Whereas all of our central bankers around the world, Jerome Powell, Christine Lagarde, Shakti Kanta in India, and Pan Gongsheng in China, are creating new currency just out of thin air whenever they feel the need. And what does that do? That devalues the existing currency. In fact, it's the public policy, the outfront policy, to have what they call a 2% inflation rate. What that means, if you do the math, every 5 years, they take 10% of our money through currency devaluation. Bitcoin, you can't do that. You can't create more out of nothing. So it has a store of value in that way. But for our Hindu listeners who hold rupee accounts, it's even more significant because the Reserve Bank of India, their inflation target's not 2%, it's 4% a year. So if we do that math, they plan to take 4% times 5 years is almost 20% of your rupees every 5 years. And just yesterday, there's progress. An Indian politician, Pradeep Bhandari, called for India to adopt a Bitcoin reserve pilot. So that's progress. And India already has the highest rate of grassroots Bitcoin buyers in the world. So indicating that they've done the math themselves and realized They need to put their money into something that doesn't erode with time and with central bankers' whims.
Inflationary pressures, devaluation of money, that is an aspect I will admit I had not entirely considered. And theoretically, when currencies were on a gold standard or were backed by gold or other precious metal reserves, that was, you couldn't just create money out of nothing in the same way that you could now with currency that isn't backed by anything, correct? I have that?
Yes.
Okay. So then how can investors, Hindu or otherwise, obviously we're aiming it at Hindus, use cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, to, protect their wealth? Is there any advantage other than the chief talking point was just made about devaluation of currency and therefore you are somewhat losing money?
Yes, well, we don't feel it so much in America, but in many countries, it's a lifeline against currencies that collapse. If you're Venezuelan, you really appreciate Bitcoin because your Venezuelan money has gone to almost zero. So worldwide, it has that application as well. As far as how to implement it, if you wanted to put some of your savings in Bitcoin, three ways. One, you can exchange your national currency for Bitcoin. Many corporate treasuries have altered their policy to put their money in Bitcoin, or at least some of it. Two, you can invest in what are called exchange-traded funds, ETFs, which hold Bitcoin. Larry Fink's BlackRock, the biggest investment company on the planet, has 400,000 Bitcoin in their ETF so far. A third way is you could buy shares or minority interest in public companies whose business model is to accumulate Bitcoin. They're called Bitcoin treasury companies. And a company that's just simply called Strategy B is the biggest one. And last month, after some due diligence, I found a company that's implementing that model even more effectively than Strategy B. But one hurdle was it only trades in Tokyo. So I had to quickly arrange to invest there, exchange dollars for yen, and those shares increased more than 100% since. And they were superior because in Japan, interest rates are low. So that company borrows yen at 0%, free money basically, and buys Bitcoin. The news was just getting out, so I had to kind of act fast. Kind of like our last talk when we discussed be still as a stalking heron. When the time for action comes, imitate its lightning strike.
One thing that occurred to me when we were talking about Venezuela and currencies devaluing, and if you move into a cryptocurrency, it's more stable. What would theoretically destabilize, or if anything, destabilize Bitcoin in that way? Is it possible?
It's theoretically possible. There's a fear that eventually quantum computers might be able to break the code. But if you look at where quantum computers are, actually, they just had an article today how they celebrated keeping 1 qubit stable for 1 millisecond, and how that was a big breakthrough. So they are a long, long way from that. And Bitcoin has protocols built into it to harden the security when and if that were ever to happen. But there are risks. Other than the value itself falling of Bitcoin, most likely risk, believe it or not, is staring at you in the bathroom mirror every morning. People forget their wallet passwords. They forget they even bought Bitcoin 10 years ago. And if you forget your password or lose your hardware wallet or delete a digital wallet without backing it up, your Bitcoin's gone. It's lost. It's inaccessible. Another risk is deceased owners without succession plans. That, for example, a fellow in Canada, Gerald Cotton, he died in 2018, and he was the only one that knew the password to $200 million worth of Bitcoin. So now it's lost. No one can get to it.
Doesn't that theoretically reduce the overall number of Bitcoins in practicality?
Well, if you add all these things up that I've talked about, experts estimate there's close to 4 million out of the 21 million. 4 million are lost, inaccessible. That's
a big percentage.
That's huge. So makes the remaining ones more accessible, more scarce, but
it's not, the overall values number still doesn't go down, and no one can access that without some fancy quantum computing that may be a long way away to break into something, essentially.
That's right. It's a public ledger, so everyone can look at it and see that there's billions of dollars there, but no one can get to it. It's an interesting phenomenon.
So, what's your, without giving, again, the caveat the way I think I've given in all of these, without giving specific investment advice to anybody, what's your top line thing on Bitcoin for Hindus investing, and maybe link it into some of the topics we've talked about before in terms of ethical investing and all of that?
Yes, and that brings up a good point, Matt. Our podcast today, we have to say, is not personal financial advice. For that, you have to consult an investment advisor, or maybe your astrologer, or your know-it-all brother-in-law, all the while sitting in the northeast corner of your Vastu home, of course. So we're just chatting and answering questions about what's happened in the recent past, with nothing implied about the multiverse Maya of the future. But overall, I think that it's worthwhile to at least allocate some to Bitcoin. And I've always been very conservative by nature. I often invest just in U.S. Treasury bills. So I missed a lot of the volatility, both up and down. But I take heart in that Warren Buffett does that too. That's his biggest investment. But over the years, I've seen some and participated in some mega trends, some fundamental improvements. And the Bitcoin, the blockchain, appears to be one of those, that new things do appear once in a while. Sand has existed on beaches for millions of years, but it was only recently humans purified sand into crystalline silicon and created these transistors that we hold in our hand when we use our iPhone. I think it is a mega trend. I don't think it's too late. When it crossed 100,000 last year, people thought, oh, it's too late. 100,000 for one Bitcoin. I missed it. But just this Monday, it was 110,000. Tuesday, it was 111,000. Wednesday, it was 112,000. Today, it's 113,000. So seems to be somebody still buying. Good to participate in some way.
In a rather forced segue, another new technology that's coming along that some people may have heard of is artificial intelligence, AI. And you dropped a note to me, say, AI is transforming finance, period. Explain that to me for someone who, again, I am the layperson who doesn't know much about these things. I am playing that character on this podcast today. How is AI transforming finance on Instagram and social media and elsewhere? I see things for like AI trading algorithms in this app, that sort of thing. Is that what you're talking about, or what's going on?
Well, just in general, AI is being adopted by every organization that plans to survive and thrive in the era we're in. And one of the biggest first effects is it reduces employee expense. Microsoft this week announced that they're laying off 9,000 people because 35% of their code is written by AI now. So that's a mega trend too. As far as in line with Dharma and Ahimsa and Satya, we want to use it for good and without harming others, and use it for truth. Use it, yes, but most AI companies that are out there, all these newer startups, will not be optimum investments in the long term, I think. They lack one feature that's needed for increasing value, and that's scarcity. Any intelligent business person can load their business plans into an LLM, so it's available for everyone, often for free, minimal costs. And so because it's abundant like that, the value is going to be compressed. It's like computer chips and DRAM and laptops. The competitive prices will decline because of all the competition, and corporate profit margins will follow. So AI, we use it, we want to use it, we have to use it, but be careful investing in it. DeepSeek from China, it's free. hard to profit competing with free. This past weekend, I had lunch with an author. She put all the books she wrote into an LLM, connected it with a voice generator, programmed with her own voice, connected that to her voicemail. Now, anyone who wants to ask her questions calls her number, and the LLM answers questions in her voice with all the data from her books while she's having lunch. So a whole new world of AI. Good question.
Yeah, call me in the AI skeptic category as well. I feel like I'm not quite Justine Bateman. For those people that don't follow entertainment in AI, Justine Bateman, who was a teen actor, went on and has been involved in the film industry. Brothers Jason Bateman is hugely skeptical of AI, and I have to say I am as well, especially in the creative industries, because I feel like we are recycling things, and I don't know if it actually creates anything new. It just regurgitates everything back. That is my soapbox on AI. But
well, I agree with you.
I mean, go.
If you look at the chakras, right, the root Muladhara is memory, the next one Svadhisthana is reason, and the next higher up are creativity. So AI is mimicking Muladhara. It remembers stuff better than we do. It mimics Svadhisthana. It can reason and logic and remember to connect this with that. But that's where it stops. It's like a very smart assistant that we have, but we're the creators. I think creativity still is the human realm.
No,
so I agree with you.
It's yes, entirely. I'd never thought about it from a chakra perspective. But this isn't a podcast about AI. Let's go on a long-term view. You've mentioned it. You've alluded to taking a long-term perspective if you're talking about U.S. Treasury bonds and stuff like that. How's Hindu Dharma shaped your approach to that, taking that long-term view, and what value does that have in navigating volatile markets, which we are no doubt likely to see during the Trump administration? Because, well, it seems to have calmed down a little bit. It feels like back earlier in the year, every time President Trump sneezed on a tariff in a direction, the market freaked out. Whereas now we seem to be mellowing a little bit and realizing things are not as dramatic as always they seem. They may be. There's a threat of drama right on the horizon at all times. Bring it back to the Hindu Dharma and the long-term investing. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yes. Well, this first half of this year, you're right. Every new trade deal that was or was not announced moved the markets all around. I think some of the indexes dropped about 20% from the top in February down to the bottom in April, but now have bounced back. So there is volatility, of course. I think for savings, a lot of the Hindus I know, including me, like to have less volatility. So things like T-bills, where you go and earn your money somewhere else and then just put it in something that you know is going to be around for a while. Even though it is going to suffer from the devaluation and the inflation, at least you know it's not going to go up or down 50% in a week. So that's my general take on things. Nevertheless, it's also good to find asymmetric risk rewards, something where you can invest in it, and maybe if it goes wrong, you lose a little, but if it goes right, you make a lot. Those are things to look for in the overall scheme of things.
I'm mindful of all our time, and these podcasts on finance, I feel like, are good when they're a little bit shorter. One thing I know you wanted to talk about is investments aligning with Hindu environmental values and that sort of thing. Is there a way to talk about that while bringing it back to Bitcoin? Hey, there's a connection. Bringing it back to Bitcoin and the rather intense energy usage is required to create it. Let's go into that a little bit. I know you wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, well, you're right. All of this AI and the Bitcoin blockchain mining, it needs terawatts, petawatts of electricity to run. There's 12,000 data mills, these big data centers on the planet. There's 3,000 more on the CAD/CAM drawing boards. So that's another big trend is how to power all of this without burning up all the coal and oil. One up and coming venture in Santa Clara, they design and build clean, reliable, affordable energy plants through small modular reactors. A reactor, of course, is basically a steam engine heated by uranium pellets. And their business model is to recycle old atomic fuel and not use any coal, not use any oil, and sell that power to data centers, industrial sites, military bases, even remote communities. So that's one solution that I think is pretty good.
So let's go into that one a little bit. For people, many listeners probably don't know, I had a previous life, not in a reincarnation sense, but a professional sense, reporting on energy. So how big are we talking? This is like modular nuclear reactors, which we've been on the drawing boards and people have put forth for 2 decades now. So how big are we talking about here? And what was the scale of development, or this scale isn't the right word. Where are they in development?
You're right. They've been on the drawing boards for a long time. The acronym is SMR, Small Modular Reactor. But the good news is we might be at the sweet point in that both this company, which is called NuScale, and another company called Oklo, they have prototypes being built in southwestern Idaho. So it looks like they're going to see if these things really work and are really economical and really are good stewards of the environment. Yeah. So that's where we are. We're early days.
How are they dealing with the primary, one of the primary problems with nuclear power is, of course, the waste products of it. There's nothing coming out in terms of carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions more broadly, but we've got nuclear waste. How are they? You mentioned they're recycling something in it. I'm sorry, my brain shut off for half a second.
Oh, yes. They're taking old atomic fuel from old generation reactors, and that's what they use as their fuel. So I think that's a step in the right direction. Maybe not ideal. But on that subject, you, I imagine, know more than I do about the best way, if there is a good way to dispose of it.
It's a very complicated subject that I will demur from commenting on the state of things right now, because it has literally been, I've been at HAF 9 years, which means it's been about 10 years since I reported on energy. So anything I will state will be somewhat out of date, and I'd hate to do that. But it's a perennial problem in nuclear power. I mean, the advantage of a small reactor like this, if you solved that problem, is that it can provide a base load of energy when other clean sources of energy, clean in the sense of no greenhouse gases at the point of production, such as solar, wind, geothermal, can't. Geothermal runs all the time, but solar requires sun, and wind obviously requires wind. And there is to go on a slight tangent. God, I've been tangenting today. The problem with big industrial scale wind farms, as anybody that's been out to Palm Springs knows, is that it's a major visual change to the landscape. It's hard. It's not like solar power, which you can put panels on top of your roof and you power your home, etc. Industrial scale wind farm is an industrialization of the landscape, nevertheless, which doesn't mean we necessarily shouldn't do it, but there are trade-offs to everything. Nothing is clean and green if you figure out every single angle of it is sometimes it's put out to be. So, Easan, let's go down through this. Where do we want to go? You've given me some talking points. Let's go. Here, we'll end up. What advice do you want to give Indo-American investors in balancing, wealth creation, artha, and moksha and liberation? Ensuring that your portfolio, is in balance spiritually and materially.
Gee, well, this week is the week of Guru Purnima. So let me first say that for moksha advice, certainly consult your own guru first.
Yeah, we are recording this on Guru Purnima, and it's also Dharma Day today for our Buddhist friends.
So if you need a guru, find one like mine who glows with the authority of personal realization is my advice. But that said, my answer to your question is comes with some humility because I don't know much. But when we seek to discover, to connect to, and commune with, and finally merge into the divine, if it's Advaitic realization, it's a drop becoming the ocean. Well, that path within, it goes through the heart and beyond the thinking mind. And if the heart is guilt-ridden with adharmic wealth gained through harming others, then that would be a huge obstacle to moksha, I would say. But for those of us living in La Dvaita Loka, we love our Ishta Devata. And the scriptures tell us.
What did you just say? Live in what? La Dvaita Loka? That's pretty good.
Living in La Dvaita Loka,
Okay.
where most of us are, in love with our Ishta Devata. The goal would be to live life well, and afterwards dwell in the heaven worlds among the gods and secure a fortunate birth to continue the journey. And even the Advaitas, if they read Patanjali, there's one little known sutra. He says, Ishvara pranidanad va samidha, and which is by devotion to Ishvara, samadhi is attained. So we do.
Yeah, that's a great place to leave it, because you're opening up the door to an entire another podcast about the inherent
next time
religiosity, actually, of yoga in that right there in that sutra.
Yes.
So, Easan, good to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for your time, and we will talk tomorrow. Wait, do we have a call? I don't know. We'll talk on an HAF staff call soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Matt. May Ishvara guide and protect each of us and all of us.